Welcome to episode 60. Wow, 60 episodes of From the Shed End podcast with myself, Tida, as always, and I'm joined by Theo. So first and foremost, how you doing, Theo?
Yeah, football aside, I had an amazing 10 days abroad in the sun. About to lose my tan probably here in London as it's kind of grey out there right now. But yeah, like I said, football aside, I've had a really good time and can't complain. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Yeah, it's been okay. It's been not too bad, but yeah, obviously, football aside, it's been disheartening watching the Arsenal game. But yeah, apart from that, no, it's been good. It's been good. Enjoying the half term, kids, all of that stuff. But yeah,
Chocolate eggs, I'm sure. A lot
chocolate
of chocolate.
eggs. Yeah, Easter egg hunts, chocolate eggs. It feels like ages ago Easter. It was only Sunday. But yeah, just the usual with kids. But as always, guys, if you're listening on Spotify, we do have a YouTube channel. The subscribers, I asked for 50 subscribers I think it was by Sunday, by the cup final, this FA Cup semi-final. We got to 50. We got 52 now, which is brilliant. Our views are going up slowly as well. So we do appreciate everyone that is subscribed. If you're not, please make sure you smash the subscribe button and the like button and let us know your thoughts as well in the comments. And yeah, of course, let's get straight into it because I think we've got a couple games to talk about. Let's go all the way back to last weekend, Crystal Palace FA Cup semi-final. Very cagey game. Give me your thoughts initially. I know you was away, I think, at the time, but give me your thoughts on the game.
I thought first half was pretty lackluster, if I'm completely honest. We didn't really show much grit or much fight. Palace probably had the best chance in that first half, if I'm not mistaken. I think Joachim Andersen hitting the post. Second half, we woke up. We did really well, I felt. Both goals were pretty good, if I'm honest, from Loftus-Cheek. Brilliant strike from him. I know it took a deflection, but we have to remember that's his first goal of the season, and you could tell how much by the celebrations, what it meant to him. Mason Mount got the second goal. I think Timo Werner, some really good work from Timo Werner and build up to that goal. But no, when you look at the scoreline, 2-0 against Palace in the semi-final, and I think I did mention a while back how I thought Palace would be really up for this one, given the day trip to Wembley. They don't get there as often as maybe a Chelsea, a City, a United, those type of teams. So I thought they'd be really up for it. And scoring 2 against them, clean sheet, I thought that was a really impressive scoreline. We saw that the game at Selhurst Park back, I think, in February, how tricky that was. We needed a last-minute winner from Hakim Ziyech to get the 3 points. I was kind of expecting more of the same in that semi-final. But the fact, like I said, we scored 2, what was a relatively comfortable second half, was very pleasing. I thought maybe we could bounce back after that kind of disappointment of Real Madrid. I know the Real Madrid performance was really, really good, but I thought we could bounce back from the whole kind of overall tie. And we did, but then bloody Wednesday's game put that all in the bin. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that later, unfortunately. But yeah, it was a pleasing performance, and we're in a final now, which 3rd year in a row. So let's hope this time we can actually win it, and I don't have to make that miserable walk back to Wembley Park tube station after a defeat.
The curse that has been Theo for a while. But no, I think you're right. Excuse me. I thought you was spot on. I thought it was always going to be difficult going up against the Crystal Palace team that didn't really have nothing to lose. If they go out with pride. They got to the semi-final. They actually started the game, I thought, a lot better than we did in the first half. I thought they had the better chances as well. But, it came at a cost. We've lost Mateo Kovacic now for a couple of weeks. I think Thomas Tuchel said earlier in the week, it's expected around 2 weeks that he'll be out for. It's a big loss. And we will touch on Arsenal shortly, but we got to see how important Mateo Kovacic is in that midfield at the moment. I'd arguably say he's probably our best midfield player that we've got at the moment. The way that N'Golo Kante's been playing, the way that Jorginho's kind of been in and out of the team as well. It does show a lot of what Kovacic has been doing for us. But I thought the goal, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, we spoke about him, I think, in the previous 2 episodes around, I was one of the people saying, is his time up at Chelsea? Should he move on? And I know you was a big believer and still are a big believer that, he's still got a role to play. And it's kind of these games where, he turns up, he gets a goal deservingly as well. put in a brilliant performance. A brilliant performance off the back of, you think back to Southampton, you think Real Madrid, those two big games, big performances,
Brilliant.
and then to go into a game against Crystal Palace at Wembley, massive game for Ruben Loftus-Cheek.
No, I'd have to agree. Like you mentioned, his performances at the Bernabeu and away to Southampton were really, really promising, and you just felt like he deserved the goal on the back end of those games. The score at a semi against his former club, he went down on loan as well in a semi-final at Wembley in the FA Cup, was really, really deservingly, and the finish was brilliant as well. I think it was a really underrated finish. Yes, it took a deflection, like I mentioned earlier, but the technique to kind of get down and volley that ball and put power on it as well, beyond the keeper's reach, was really impressive. I'm kind of hopeful now that goal will trigger something and he can score a couple more before the end of the season and unlock that 2019 form he had under Maurizio Sarri.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it did come at a cost with Mateo Kovacic. But before we move on to the Arsenal game, Liverpool in the final, May the 14th. It's almost a part 2 of the League Cup early this season, but I'm confident. I'm really confident that we can beat Liverpool. I mean, you think back to every game, Anfield, Stamford Bridge, the League Cup final.
We were the better team.
We were the better team, and we didn't get battered. We didn't get hammered. Sometimes you see Liverpool very much like they did against Manchester United earlier in the week. They seem to just manhandle teams, but they don't seem to do that with Chelsea. I think, bar the fact we had 10 men at Anfield for the best part of 45 minutes plus, stoppage time or whatever. Even in the game against the League Cup final at Wembley, we were the better team. We shouldn't have lost that game. I think that's a fact. It was an offside. We've all had our, we've all had our moans and groans about that. But Liverpool are beatable, and I think sometimes they are probably the best team in Europe. We have to say they're one of the best, but they're beatable. They really are. I don't know what you think about our chances in the FA Cup, the final. What's our chances of beating Liverpool?
No, like you mentioned, all 3 games we played against them this season, I felt like we were the better team. Played at Anfield 45 minutes with 10 men, and we've defended really valiantly in that second half. Stamford Bridge and at Wembley, they should have been down to 10 men. I don't know what VAR probably wasn't functioning those 2 days, because I think it was Mane elbowing Azpi, Keita stamping on Chalobah. Like you said, we moan and groan about these decisions a lot on this podcast, but we're allowed to do that because they were shocking, and I feel like there's going to be more controversy in that final. It is Liverpool, what happens when Liverpool play, but they do have some vulnerabilities. We saw that against Benfica in the Champions League, conceding 3 at Anfield. I feel like if Havertz, Lukaku, Mount, whichever front 3 plays Werner now that he's on form, find a bit of a dynamism and kind of link up play between all of them, we will kind of unlock that defense. I do feel like, and we did do that at times at Wembley, I remember, and particularly in that end of that first half at Stamford Bridge. So I do like you. I'm optimistic, but at the same time, it's Chelsea. It's a final. It's an FA Cup. We haven't been lucky in these recent finals. We haven't been lucky against Liverpool. So I feel like it may be a question of who's the luckiest team on the day potentially. But all we can do is just play our best football and hope that we can get some silverware to finish the season.
Yeah, and we forget. I obviously done my match reaction to the Arsenal game, gave player ratings, which I look back on now and I feel was a bit harsh. But we forget we have had some silverware already this season. We look at the Club World Cup. We can go back as far as the Super Cup, whether you want to class that as last season's success or this season, but it's still played as part of this season for me. But we've had some good successful times already this season. I think if we can get top 4, maybe an FA Cup, I think it's been an okay season. I wouldn't scream from the rooftops about it, but I think based on how we've played, I think it was 55 games, Thomas Tuchel said earlier on today, the fact that we've had a lot of injuries, COVID issues, we've had to play through COVID as well. It's been a half decent to get to the final. Yes, we might have had an easier, if that's the right word, an easier run to the final than some of the other teams. I think that was one of the things a lot of people mentioned at the weekend was, we played no disrespect to them, but a lot of lower league teams to get to the final. But you got to play what's in front of you. And I think, if we'd faced any of the other teams, I'm sure we would have just given as much as we did against the Luton or a Plymouth or Chesterfield. It's just a look of the draw, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, you can only play what's in front of you. We played Middlesbrough, who we have to remember knocked out both United and Tottenham. So we just had to play what was in front of us, and we're in the final now. I think it was a very tough run to the final. I can't remember if it was last season or the season before. I think we played Leicester, United. Then I think last season it was City in the semis. So we have had it easy in the past, but maybe it's about time we get a bit of luck of the draw. But no, I think we just have to give it all in that final. It's our last kind of way of getting some kind of redemption out of this season, because I don't think it will be a successful season if we lose the FA Cup final and maybe we drop to fourth rather than third, because I think now that we're third, we want to stay there, particularly when you look at what's below us and how big the rivalry is with those teams. It would be embarrassing for our fan base. And we know, like we always say, the kind of banter on the WhatsApps and the Twitters will be hard for us Chelsea fans to take. So, I think top three, I want to say, and FA Cup. And I won't be particularly chuffed like I was maybe last season when we won the Champions League, of course. But at this stage of the season, given the circumstances, we'll take it.
Let's move on to Wednesday night. Yeah. To be honest, I'm still not over it. I haven't. I tried to watch Burnley, Southampton last night. I couldn't even get into it. But yeah, let's start off with the lineup, because I think it did surprise a few people. Malang Sarr over Chalobah. Lukaku back in the team. It was, some of them were forced. Obviously, Rudiger, Kovacic not being in the team, you would expect a couple of changes. But just give me your thoughts on the lineup that Thomas Tuchel went with, especially against Arsenal, who, we haven't had the best record against. I think you said earlier, we were going to gift him. You said Charity FC. So, give me your thoughts on the lineup.
I think I can understand why Tuchel wants to rotate. We've got a game midweek, a game every weekend now, probably till the end of the season, 2 games a week. We need to rotate. We can't afford more injuries like we have with Kovacic and Rudiger. But I think the changes that he made showed that he didn't respect the opponent. It was complacent. It was arrogance. Sarr, I think he's a good player. Is he good enough to start at home against Arsenal in the Premier League? No, he's not. Like you mentioned, I would much rather Chalobah. I know that Chalobah's had his ups and downs this season, but I think he's a better ball-playing defender, and he shows a lot more reassurance as well, because I think Sarr, particularly when he was on a yellow card in that second half, he was playing like a headless chicken, making rash decisions, rash mistakes, and I just knew that I thought he was going to get sent off. He probably should have got sent off at one stage, but that was a bit shocking. I felt like what really worried me, how we started off and his defensive mistakes we made, was that as soon as you take Rudiger, Silva, and maybe Kovacic out of that team, there's no spine to it. There's no kind of, every time the ball is sent into the penalty box, it looks like we're going to concede a goal. I don't know. It just felt like it was, Arsenal were shambolic defensively as well, but we were worse than them. And that's why we conceded 4. We gifted, I'd say 3 of those 4 goals were gifted to Arsenal easily. And it seems to be the story of every time we play Arsenal at home. Last season, Jorginho passing it back to Kepa, then Smith Rowe just tapped it in. The season before that, I think Kante slipped in that game that Arsenal claimed they won, but we have to remember it was a 2-2 draw. It's really frustrating. And I think probably we're the same, but it's that one game a season, maybe alongside Liverpool, we just want to win. We just hate losing it, because we know that a lot of our people in our friend groups are Arsenal fans, maybe Liverpool fans, but it's that one that you just know that they're going to talk about for ages, whereas we're just we expect that win, but it's such a frustrating defeat. And I think the lineup probably, I knew it from the off that I wasn't as probably optimistic as a lot of other Chelsea fans before the lineup, and after, even more so after I saw the lineup.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was surprised to see Malang Sarr. I'm trying to think of the best performance Malang Sarr's had at Chelsea. Probably one of those games where we played 4 at the back and he was left back. Yeah. I think maybe
he did well against Brentford, I think, in the Premier League.
Yeah,
away. But yeah, you're right. Other than that, he's been a bit up and down.
Yeah, I just think, why would you have? To me, Chalobah's put in some man of the match performances before he got injured. Think back to the League Cup. You mentioned the League Cup final. He was playing well, and he deserves a chance to be in that team ahead of Malang Sarr. Christensen, I mean, I was critical when he made his mistake, and I was in my match reaction as well. But it's just schoolboy. It's schoolboy defending. It's things that are preventable. We can prevent these things from happening. The moment our Arsenal go 1-0, we're chasing the game. We're chasing the game with players that not necessarily are the level and standard that we need at Chelsea. You look at, like we mentioned, Malang Sarr, Lukaku up front, and I don't want to penalise Lukaku. I thought he actually had a half decent game. He just didn't. There was just nothing. I mean, the thing with Lukaku, sometimes he makes the right run and he doesn't receive the service, he doesn't get the right ball. But there's some time as well, you've got to do a lot of that hard work yourself. You've got to do the leg work yourself, and he just doesn't do it. He's just too static, and he just doesn't move like he just doesn't move like a striker. So yeah, the first goal, I thought all four could have been avoided. I thought that Nketiah, to even beat Christensen the way he did in that 1v1, and the second goal, so it was almost comical, the sort of Kante and Sarr getting mixed up, and Mendy should be doing better as a goalkeeper.
We need to talk about Mendy as well.
He's got, going back to the first goal, it's avoidable, because even if Christensen, who has just got a simple pass back to the goalkeeper, if he doesn't, Mendy should be thinking, right, the ball isn't coming towards me. Even if you come out and you just close, you make it more difficult for Nketiah to get past Malang Sarr. Malang Sarr should be doing better. It's just, it's almost like there was no, everyone thought that somehow this ball was going to get back to Mendy, and it was just comical. Smith Rowe's goal, avoided. I think the ball starts off, we have possession of the ball, we're attacking, we lose the ball. I think Alonso gets nutmegged. I think it's Xhaka. We lose the ball. We end up on our backpedaling, and somehow we just sit 6s and 7s, and it's just, again, Mendy. I mean,
it goes down in slow-mo, doesn't it? He's not a full stretch.
the thing you sent me on WhatsApp was
the robot diving like this.
It's pretty much what Mendy was doing. He's done it quite often this season, but more so, I mean, he didn't even attempt to save the ball. He just goes down and just looks at the ball going past him.
The annoying thing keepers do when they get down on their knees rather than dive, and they just do that weird slide thing they just like kind of swift their body to the side.
It's pointless. It was pointless.
Get down and dive for it. And I feel like had he dived, he's almost 2 meters. He would have definitely got a fingertip to that.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I kind of do feel that Tuchel, I mean, he definitely got it wrong, 100%. He got it completely wrong. Did he do it as almost like a Pep tactically like Pep? I'll let you answer. What do you think? Do you think he...
I mean, it's one of those ones where had we beat Arsenal 3 or 4-0, or even beat them 1-0 with a clean sheet, we would have said, oh, Tuchel masterclass. What a lineup. We pulled it off with Sarr, Christensen and so on. But the fact we didn't, it's egg on Tuchel's face now, and it looks bad. And he's overthought things. Maybe he was complacent and arrogant, I felt. But I don't think even Pep tactical probably wouldn't have defended like we did. So that's the difference probably right now with us and Man City is schoolboy defending, Sunday League defending, defensive mistakes, gifting goals to the opposition. Man City don't do that. Man City certainly don't do that.
I think what it showed me as well was the fact that I remember saying at the start of the season, or maybe back in the last season, we do have depth in the squad. And I remember saying...
we both said it, yeah.
We've got depth. I mean, we do. We've got a lot of players out on loan. The problem is we don't have the quality. So we've got the depth. We don't have the quality. You look at maybe Man City, they could probably put out 2 11s to an extent. Liverpool, not so much, but they've got enough on their bench, especially now. They've got Diaz and Jota, who they can switch around. Konate. Even Gomez, you think about Gomez, they've still got Matip, Van Dijk. They've got maybe even left back, they've got Tsimikas, who can play there now ahead of Robertson. Maybe Trent's the only one where they would probably struggle if they lost him, but I think Gomez can play there as well. They've got players that can swap over, and it doesn't really impact how they play. Whereas when we do that, I mean, Alonso, Malangsar, Timo Werner, that left side, it was disgusting to watch. It really was. It was just enough. I mean, Arteta picked up on it. If you notice, the Saka was just running the show down the left side. He was having a field day. I wanted to talk about Saka and Azpilicueta because I think it was a very, very soft. I think it was a penalty. I do. It was 100% soft, and probably the reason I think it's a penalty because if you look at the position that Azpilicueta's in, he's not attempting to get this ball at all. His objective is to stop.
He's not even looking at the ball, is he?
He's not, and it's soft. I think it's a very soft penalty to give. I'm annoyed that it was given. I can't remember if VAR was checked. It was checked, but it didn't go to the screen.
It didn't even look like there was a review. They usually mention VAR in review. No, that wasn't even on our TV screen. So I reckon the ref was quite.
What was your thoughts though? Did you think it was initially it was a penalty, or do you look back on it now and say, well, Saka had Azpilicueta's arm, vice versa. It's a 50-50. Did he? I mean, for me, he went down easily because he knew he was going to get a penalty.
I think it was just
part of the game.
Azpi was at boiling point. He was frustrated. It's not what you'd expect from your captain and such an experienced player like him, but it was a penalty. But I completely agree. It was soft. I think had it been 2-2 and that was the winning goal, I'd be fuming. I'd be absolutely fuming. But because it didn't really change the final scoreline or the impact, the actual result of the game, I'm not that fussed. And it was a pen, I think. You look at, like you said, his positioning, where he's looking at where Saka is compared to Azpi and where the ball is, which is played behind the two of them. And I did see it in the corner of my eye when the ball was put into the box, and I was thinking, oh, shit, that's going to be a penalty. Yep. And then as soon as that penalty was awarded, I got out the sports box I was watching at the airport, straight to the terminal for my flight. And then it was all a blur from there and on the flight. And didn't really help that the air steward was an Arsenal fan either, asking me for the score.
Oh, man.
That didn't help either. That really didn't help. Yeah.
I mean, we haven't mentioned really the goals that we scored. I mean, lucky for Timo Werner. One thing I do want to speak about Timo Werner around is the fact that he seems a lot more confident. And I said in the match reaction that I don't think, a couple of weeks ago, he would have even attempted to take that shot on, albeit with the deflection that it did have as well. But I just don't think he would have taken that shot on. The confidence seems to be there. I'm hoping we can hopefully see, the next couple of weeks, we can see the best out of Timo Werner. Brilliant pre-season and kickstart the season next season with just as much confidence and drive from Timo Werner. I think is key. Him and Havertz are the two key players that we need to focus on in our attack now as well. But what was your thoughts on both goals, not just Timo Werner's, but I mean, Cesar Azpilicueta scored a striker's goal, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, I thought both goals were brilliant. I mean, like you said, bit of luck with Werner's deflection, but the confidence it took for him to shoot from that kind of angle or that range showed that he's full of confidence at the moment. For a goal or an assist in his last 4 games, if I'm not mistaken. And Azpi's goal, the timing of the run was perfect, and the finish as well. First touch finish, absolutely brilliant. Haven't really fully watched it again. If I'm completely honest, I don't want to really watch the highlights of that game again. But from what I remember, it was a pretty neat finish, type of thing you'd expect from a Havertz or a Mount. So credit to him. But then he lost his head in the second half. I was really pleased when I saw Azpi on the score sheet, but I was thinking to myself, is this the same Azpi that we're used to, getting into almost scuffs with fans, giving away probably was the cheapest penalty to give away. But yeah, I think that goal, that's what I can credit Azpi for, was that goal was well taken.
Yeah, I mean, I almost agreed with the fan in that situation to an extent. The player in that situation with Azpi. I think he's well within his rights. I think, I think we've got into this world now where social media plays a massive part and people feel like they can just say anything to players. And yes, they're there to do a job. They're there to, they're expected to get criticism, but I think it's how you do it. I think you've got to, just hurling abuse at someone and just shouting. I mean, I was reading that yesterday about Harry Maguire and the sort of bomb thing at his house, and just the level of understanding of how far to go. And if you're going to hurl abuse at a player, you've got to almost expect the same back. You've got to expect that backlash. I do think it was a bad game. Almost took me back to the sending off. I think it was against Aston Villa last season. It was just out of character for Cesar Azpilicueta. I think he got sent off in that game, and it just makes me wonder now, are we at a point where we need to, and I said this in the match reaction, are we at a point where I mean, I don't want to say Aspilicueta leave it anytime soon, you know, but are we at the point where he comes on from the bench? He's still got a massive role to play. You know, we know Reece James hopefully will be in that right wing back position for the next couple of years. We've got some talented defenders, maybe bring in another couple of new faces over the summer. But is it a case of maybe Aspilicueta 100% for me can't play right wing back? It's a tiring position, a tiring role to play. Right centre back, I don't know. But what's your thoughts? Is he still good enough, I suppose, to make the 11 week in, week out for Chelsea?
I mean, he's our club captain. It's kind of very harsh to just get rid of your club captain like that, and what he'll provide off the pitch is so valuable. I do feel like he can't play every single game, but it's the type of games where you do expect him to fill in, where he can do a good job. Not a right wing back anymore. You wouldn't want to be putting a Aspilicueta against a Saka or a Luis Diaz in today's Premier League. But I still think he's got a role to play at Chelsea for another year at least. I do want to see him stay for another year. I don't want to look at Wednesday night's performance and base that on the Aspi that we're so used to. Because even last season, he played in those Champions League games. He did play in those games, if I'm not mistaken, those knockout games later on against Madrid, Porto, and so on. And he was brilliant. He's still such an experienced player. He's still a starter for Spain at times under Luis Enrique. He probably will get taken on the plane to Qatar with Spain. So I think we should keep him for another year, but I think we should definitely build this squad around Reece James and maybe even Levi Colwill, who may play a part next season or the season beyond that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like I said, I wouldn't want to see him leave. I think, he's got bags of experience, and whoever comes in, even for a Reece James, someone like Reece James, I think there's a lot that he can learn from an Aspilicueta. Last thing I want to say about the Arsenal game, it's almost going to the wire in terms of top four. And, they're level on points, Arsenal, Tottenham. We're on 62 points with a game in hand at the moment. Are we in a position where if we beat West Ham, which we're going to talk about next, do you see us comfortably sitting in third for the remainder of the season?
It's a lot of ifs and buts, I feel. I said that if we, after the Southampton game, I thought we all felt we were comfortably in third, and then all it takes is one defeat and wins for your rivals, and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh shoot, maybe we're not so comfortable in that third place position. We might beat West Ham, then lose to United next Thursday, and we'll be asking ourselves the same question. So I think all we've got to do now is win our games, literally win our games, particularly against these teams that are hovering right below us, the likes of West Ham, United. I think even more so than before, this West Ham game is a must win now. Must win. Not just for the league table, but also you look at our home form recently and it's been abysmal. 3 defeats in a row at home, 11 goals conceded in those 3 games. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And we're Chelsea Football Club. We should be beating West Ham regardless of how good West Ham have been this season. So I think it's a must win. Must win. I'll be even a draw. You're starting to think it will still go down to the wire. I've actually got tickets for that game, so I'm more nervous than excited now for that one.
Let's talk about the lineup potentially that we might see on Sunday. I don't know. I mean, I personally would go with Chalobah. As my 3 centre-backs, I'd go with Chalobah, Silva and Aspilicueta. But before that, goalkeeper, I've put Kepa in goal. And I want to get your thoughts on this, because I feel like Mendy's played a lot of football. African Cup of Nations, he's played a lot of football for Chelsea as well. He has made a lot of errors during that time, but he's also pulled off some brilliant saves. And, the one that sticks out for me in terms of errors at the moment is that West Ham reverse fixture, the 2 mistakes he made for the goal and for the penalty. Would you start Kepa on Sunday in place of Mendy based on current form, I suppose? And we know what Kepa's about. He's not the Kepa that we signed or was under Frank Lampard. This is seems like a new, improved version under Tuchel. Would you start Kepa on Sunday?
I'm in full agreement to start Kepa. I would have started Kepa at Wembley against Palace even. I feel we forget that just because these players aren't outfield players, they still get tired, they still get fatigued. Being a goalkeeper is a very demanding position, both physically and mentally. And I think it's about time Mendy's, I'm not saying drop for the rest of the season, but he's given a break. He's given the break to reflect that, listen, I've been poor the last few games. I've been poor since I've won the African Cup of Nations or since the League Cup final against Liverpool. I need a break now. I need to just reflect on those performances. Tuchel needs to make him realise that he can be dropped. And like you mentioned, Arrizabalaga he's been brilliant this season. He's almost been a renaissance for Kepa. And you do wonder as well, when you play the same team, when after you messed up against them previously, you do wonder if that plays on your mind. Maybe Moyes and the West Ham players spotted a weakness in Mendy's game in that game at the London Stadium, and they might want to use that to their advantage once again on Sunday. But just not even thinking about that, I would start Kepa, like I mentioned, just to give Mendy that break and to make him realise that he can be dropped and he's not kind of a guaranteed starter in these starting 11s, particularly at this stage of the season when we've got 2 games a week.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the problems. I think, I remember we spoke about Marcus Alonso, Ben Chilwell when he was fit, and it was almost that healthy, rivalry between the two. Who wants the left wing back position more, Chilwell or Alonso? And if you remember, at one point they were both in really good form, and I think it is that competition, that pushing each other to another level. Sometimes I feel like Mendy doesn't understand or realize that there is another goalkeeper that is just as good, that can take his spot, in the goalkeeping position. So for me, I would give him the rest. I understand that he's might go against what a lot of Chelsea fans would think, but I think Kepa in this position, I think you're right. I think West Ham, if you look back to the third goal, I think it was the third goal, it's just the position
that went in.
Yeah, I mean, if you look where he is when that ball's crossed or shot, which I think was more of a cross, but just where he was, he's too far. His positioning is too far out, and maybe, we don't want to see a repeat performance of that. And I do think mentally those things do stay in your head as well. So
another weakness is his distribution. And I'm sure West Ham would have they saw that first goal when the penalty that he gave away. They saw that his distribution against Real Madrid, for instance, and they'll pick up on that and they'll close him down so quickly. Think of Antonio and Bowen, how quickly they'll close him down and force him into a mistake, maybe a dodgy clearance or a bad pass to maybe one of his defenders. West Ham will pick up on that, and I think that's something that Mendy really needs to improve, so these teams don't close him down as quickly. But yeah, there's a few other weaknesses, but this is just me being very picky and with goalkeepers. But Kepa, I think his distribution.
Because you're a goalkeeper, that's why.
I think goalkeeper 5 aside, it's very different, but. But yeah, I think Kepa's distribution is definitely trumps Mendy's.
I'd agree. What about the back 3 and the 2 wing backs? Would you go for the traditional 4 at the back that we sometimes do play, or would you keep it as a back 3, maybe 2 wing backs in James and Alonso? I've gone for Azpilicueta, Silva and Chalobah. I think that's arguably our best 3 without Rudiger, if we was to go with a back 3 with the 2 wing backs as well.
Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Back 5, back 3 with the wing backs. I wouldn't go for a back 4. I'm still having PTSD from the Brentford game where we played a back 4. And I think it's a bit weird that he mentioned that Christensen came off at halftime injured, but then didn't mention that he was injured in his press conference today. So maybe, I don't know if he's going to be maybe rested or just, I don't want to say punished for his bad performance, but dropped for that performance. So I'm happy with this back 3. You've got a mix of experience with Silva, Azpilicueta. But then you do wonder as well, if Chalobah hasn't played a minute of football since the international break, is this the right time to bring him back into the team? Obviously, he's shown this season that he's more than capable of playing these games, but I've got a feeling that maybe Tuchel's not as keen on Chalobah anymore, which Corey can indicate that maybe a Sarr or a Christensen could play again in this back 3. Loftus-Cheek's another option at right wing back. He's done well there. Maybe if he plays right wing back, you push James into that back 3. That's another option.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was my thinking as well. I mean, do we put James at right centre back, Loftus-Cheek right wing back? I just think, especially now with Kovacic, which is why I've got Loftus-Cheek in the midfield, Jorginho, Loftus-Cheek, for me, in midfield, would be a better partnership than maybe Jorginho and Kante at the moment, or Jorginho, Sao Niguez as well. I mean, those are options, but I just think Loftus-Cheek still, for me, needs to be in the team. It's whether he's at right wing back or in midfield. But what would you go with if you had to? We keep James at right wing back. Would you stick with the two in terms of Jorginho and Loftus-Cheek, or would you swap it round and maybe have, I don't know, maybe even a Sao Niguez in midfield with Jorginho?
I think I definitely want to play Loftus-Cheek. I think I'd rather see him in midfield than right wing back, simply because when I'm thinking of this West Ham team, the likes of Susek,
Fornals.
Antonio, Fornals, they're tall lads as well, especially Susek. And you feel like this type of game, it's a cliche, but it'll be one in midfield in a way. And you'd want, a tall physical player like Loftus-Cheek to be there to try to get the ball off of Susek or whoever it may be, win those headers in midfield, win those second balls. So I'm kind of happy with the Jorginho Loftus-Cheek partnership. Again, maybe a good rest for Kante, but on his day, Kante, you know what he can offer. So that's another option, I think. But I think given everything we've spoken about in this episode, I think it's right to drop Kante, maybe we would have dropped Mendy and play Jorginho and Loftus-Cheek in midfield.
Just give me your thoughts on Jorginho, because I was having a conversation. I think we kind of mentioned it ourselves earlier as well, but yesterday I was having a separate conversation around Jorginho, and is this the time to potentially look at cashing in on Jorginho or Kante? They haven't had the best of seasons. I think they both have 1 year left in their contracts, especially Kante, I think, anyway. But it's just a time where we need to start thinking maybe we sell before we lose on the free, which is what we've done before with a lot of players. Look at Giroud being a prime example of that. Someone who still has a job to do, but he's almost, Giroud's probably not the best example because me personally, I wanted to keep him, but
we all did.
Yeah, and I think, Jorginho hasn't had the best of season, Kante as well. We probably want to bring in some new faces, maybe Conor Gallagher coming back in as well. Is this the time to sell maybe Jorginho or Kante?
It's funny how we're talking about selling arguably one of the best midfielders in the world in Kante and supposedly the third best player in the world, Jorginho, according to the Ballon d'Or rankings. But I think should the sanctions get lifted and we can go into the summer transfer window and pick up a midfielder. I think I mentioned to you offline, it looks like we've made Tchouaméni our number one target. He's a lot younger than Jorginho and Kante. We've got Gallagher potentially coming back. He looks like 99% sure that he will come back and play a role next season with Chelsea. But I think he'll be more kind of battening out with Mount for that position rather than maybe a Kante or a Jorginho. But it completely depends on the sanctions, whether they get lifted or whether it gets to the halfway point of the summer, we still have these sanctions. I'm not sure, but it's such a difficult one. I think I like I also mentioned about Tchouaméni. I think Jorginho, like I said, it looks like we are thinking of selling him. We might entertain bids for him from a Serie A club or so on, which is a shame in a way because there was such a kind of good kind of vibe around those three midfielders in Kante, Kovacic, and Jorginho last season when Tuchel came in. But we've seen kind of cracks in that this season. But on their day, they're world class. But I think we're just basing it on the last couple of weeks of football we've seen from the lot. So I'm just hoping they can pick up some performances and make sure that they're here come August, September time.
Yeah, and I think as well, I think you're spot on in terms of age. I think that's one of our issues. You look at both of them, at the wrong side of their sort of age bracket for the role that they play, in my opinion. That yes, they can go on and play for many, many years, but I just think that the Premier League is a very intense, fast-paced league. I would hate to see either of them go because I think they are both world class. They might have that days or spells where they're not playing at their best, but I just think if it's at the expense of someone who, like, we know Conor Gallagher can do a job, Tchouaméni could come in and do a job, maybe not as good as them at the start, but can embed them into the team, build around those two, keep Werner, Havertz as well. You look at Reece James, we've got Thiago Silva for another season. Can we keep Rudiger? It's not a bad team when you look at it in that way. If you can have a Conor Gallagher, Mason Mount just in front of him, Loftus-Cheek coming off the bench. I wouldn't be annoyed to see one of them go. I think losing two would be a massive blow at the same time, at the same period, I think that'd be a massive blow. But I do think I think Jorginho would probably be the one that goes. I think he's itching for a move back to Italy, and he has been a very good player for us. So I think I wouldn't be disheartened to see him go. I think it's probably the right time. Probably the right time for him to go, in my opinion.
I don't want to go into too much detail about this, but we can ask ourselves the same questions about our defence. We've got Christensen, who's supposedly signed a pre-contract with Barcelona. We've got Rudiger, where his contract situation is still up in the air, and his agent's now praising Manchester United by the looks of it on social media. We've got Silva, who's 37, 38. Probably he's got he's got one more season in him at least at Chelsea. Aspi, we don't know what's going to happen. I think before talking about midfield, we need to sort out our defence, bring at least another centre-back in. I'm still not sure about this Jules Koundé kind of deal. I don't know if that's going to happen, whether he's the right fit. We've got Levi Colwill out on loan at Huddersfield, who's been superb, but no Premier League experience as well. Maybe he could benefit from a Premier League loan before coming into this Chelsea team. So there's a lot of questions to be asked this summer, but I think before that, we just need to sort out the ownership, which is something we hate to talk about on this podcast.
Yeah,
I know, but we're
going to avoid.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. I think it all depends on the sanctions. I think we're talking that we can sign players. It could be the fact that we don't sign any players and we have to make do with the players that we've got that come back in from their loans and the players that we've currently got in the squad. But getting back to the 11 that we've got for Sunday, one of the words that I love is consistency. And for me, it has to be Werner, Havertz, Mason Mount as a front three, or Werner, Havertz with Mount just sitting behind him, which I feel like he kind of did against Crystal Palace, I think, at the last weekend. But what would your front three be? Would it be the three that we have now in terms of Werner, Havertz and Mount, or would you potentially swap it for maybe a Ziyech or a Pulisic? I'm not sure, but surely consistency is the way forward.
Well, like I mentioned, it's a must-win game, and you want your best 11 based on what you've got in the squad right now. Forget with the injuries as well. So I think, given that's a must-win, you're picking your lineup based on form and consistency, and our best three currently are Werner, Havertz, and Mount. So I fully agree with you on those front three, and then maybe bringing a Ziyech or Pulisic off the bench, Lukaku, even given how the game goes. But I want to be starting the game with those front three that are on the screen right now.
We know what we've got to do before we wrap up, and we have to do the predictions. I feel like we haven't done predictions for a while.
So we're not good at it, that's why.
I started off okay, and then I went downhill, I think, just before the international break. But what's your predictions? I think I went for 2-1 earlier on today. I'm sticking with 2-1. I think I said Jorginho penalty, and I think I said Havertz goal, but I did say that we'll let West Ham back into the game in the second half as well.
Yeah, I've got a feeling again it's going to be I know I said it's a must-win game, but I feel like we might drop points. I feel it's going to be a 2-2 scoreline. Maybe a very lot of defensive mistakes again, which I don't think we'll get that sorted anytime soon. And I think, like you said, maybe a couple of times we'll let West Ham back into the game. So I'm going to go with 2-2, but I want to say also 2-1 for Chelsea, being as a Chelsea podcast, and I want to stay confident, but my heart's telling me it's going to be 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we drop points. I wouldn't. Especially, it's weird because episode 6 is called Jekyll and Hyde because that's what we are at the moment. We're playing really well against Southampton. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, the best performance I think since Napoli 2012, potentially in the Champions League against Real Madrid, to play that well. And then we come back and play Palace, do okay. But I mean, it was downhill. Almost Palace, there were signs there in the Palace game for me that we weren't where we needed to be in terms of our performances. But we can't afford to drop points against West Ham. We've got Everton away will not be easy. Neither will United away. There'll be 2 tough games that we're going to have to grab 6 points out of them as well. I just don't know. I think we can't afford to drop any points. We have to treat every game like we're trying to win the league, pretty much.
I don't agree, but we're Chelsea Football Club. We don't do things the easy way. Like we saw last season when it went down to the last game of the season where we had to rely on, I think, Tottenham beating Leicester, but we won the Champions League in the end, so we would have qualified automatically. But I think it could be a similar kind of last week, maybe stressful day where we find out if we're top 4 or not.
Well, fingers crossed we don't, and fingers crossed we get 3 points. Fingers crossed we get 3 points. I'm confident. I think after a defeat the way that we did against Arsenal, I honestly can't see us playing as bad as we did. I think if we do, I'll be very surprised. I think we have to get this right. We have to get the formation right, whether it's a back four or the 3 centre backs with the 2 wing backs. We have to get it spot on. Otherwise we could be seriously looking behind our backs at the 2 teams that we shall not name. But we could potentially be looking at a scrap for 3rd and 4th, which is just, crazy to me that we're even in that position. We shouldn't be. And earlier on I said it's these kind of games where Arsenal, you think back to November and December, the games that we drew, our home record hasn't been the best. I think we said last night or the night before that Thomas Tuchel potentially might have one of the lowest records at home at Stamford Bridge.
He does. I saw it ranks below Lampard, Conte, Mourinho, Sarri, a lot of our recent managers.
I mean, I'm still Tuchel, in Tuchel we trust. 100%. I believe in him 100%. One of the things I did say again to someone was that, we have to remember Thomas Tuchel hasn't really had a real transfer window. He's only signings, I think, is maybe Saul Niguez on loan, Lukaku.
Bettinelli.
Better if we're going to really, then he hasn't really had not that he hasn't had the opportunity, because I'm sure, he gave a list of players he wanted to the board, and not to mention the new owners, but when and if the new owners do come in, as soon as they come in, I'm pretty sure, again, there'll be conversations about who do we want to bring in, who do we want to go, if we can, without the sanctions being in place. But I think Tuchel needs to be backed heavily, I think, in the summer. An assessment of the players that we currently have as well, in terms of the ones that are on loan, Conor Gallagher's, Billy Gilmore, who I think I read earlier might be going back out on loan somewhere, full season loan next season. But those sort of players, even Mitzi Batshuayi, we've got players that are still on loan, that are still here. What are we going to do with them? Danny Drinkwaters, those sort of players just need, there needs to be a massive overhaul, which we've said before on the podcast. It has to be that sort of clear out and focus on the core players. And like I said earlier, quality in depth, not just depth, for me is the thing that we need to focus on.
Yeah, spot on. I'd agree with all that.
So 2-2 Theo, 2-1 for me. I think I'm obviously gearing towards the 2-1. I can't not back us. Although you did say 2-1 as well, to be fair. But we've got to get a win. But for everyone who's been listening or watching, as you can now watch on Spotify as well, which is a good tool to have. So you can watch the podcast or listen to the audio version of the podcast on Spotify. So if you are doing that, please make sure you go to YouTube after this and search From the Shed End. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And also, if you see at the top of the screen, you'll see that we've got all our social handles. So YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Please make sure you give those a follow as well. We hit 1,000 followers on Twitter, which is, well, we've just hit them. So I don't want to prematurely see it drop back down, but we've hit 1,000 followers on Twitter. I lose count of Instagram. I think last time I checked, it was 6,000 maybe. Maybe I've made that up.
6,200 something.
It's 6,000 something, but it's doing well. But please make sure you subscribe, because that's the one that we really want to try and push now as well. Theo, as always, thank you very much for joining me. Let's hope we get 3 points this weekend. Big games this weekend. Merseyside derby after us as well, which will be interesting. Super Frank.
Liverpool, Arsenal. Man U, Arsenal as well.
Man U, Arsenal as well. Big game. But Super Frank, we've got to try and hope that Everton stay up. I know this is a Chelsea podcast, but
not on the 1st of May though.
No, not on the 1st of May. No, we need to hope that Goodison treats us well, and we can get 3 points there. But Theo, as always, thank you very much for joining me. Episode 60 of From the Shed End podcast. Thank you all for watching and listening. Until next week, have a good weekend. We'll be back.